skip to my loo. Skip, skip, skip to my loo. Skip, skip, skip to my loo. Skip to my loo, my darling.
She looks metallic. Metallic, metallic, metallic.
Though I can't quite recall of the night sensation.
Welcome to the shop. In this episode, what do we have? Miss Utica Queen thoroughly thrown under the bus. The keyword for this episode is gaslighting. And it worked out pretty well because judging from the social media reaction, everybody bought the narrative that has been carried out for the past 3 episodes, and nobody, including me, saw that coming. That narrative was well constructed. I gotta give it to the editors and the producers. They did a pretty good job in an evil way, but also Utica helped a little bit by shooting herself in the foot multiple times. Before we begin with the review, as you know, there has been a total mess on social media, so I want to spend a minute because I am sure that somewhere there are people who don't really know what a roast is and were introduced to this episode and thought, oh my god, what the hell is happening? What is going on? A roast is insult comedy taken to the extreme. You are literally being roasted alive, and everything goes during a roast. There are no boundaries under the premise that everybody is in on the joke. It's a safe space in which you can push it as far as you possibly can. A roast is a type of comedy that might not be for everyone. And on top of that, comedy is also subjective. Now, you understand that in this setting, a failed joke comes off as just an offense because that's the purpose of the roast. But the problem is that the narrative built throughout this episode is failing to convey this meaning, because even though failed jokes in a roast sound offensive, they are not personal attack. They are the point of a roast. You have to be offensive. It's part of the challenge. That's what they had to do in order to win the challenge and continue in the competition. But these queens, they are not comedy geniuses. So it was not fair to pass what's been going on during this challenge as personal offenses. I thought it was a terrible narrative to build, and of course it reached exactly the final point that I think it aimed to reach, because people online went completely crazy about it. Now, if in this moment you are in a state of mind in which you find this kind of jokes offensive, then a roast is not for you, and a review about a roast is not for you. So if you feel like tuning out, no hard feelings, I would do exactly the same. For everybody else, let's go through this fucked up episodes and see everything that went wrong with it. So the episode starts and we are back in the workroom. It's not even 2 minutes in, and immediately we are introduced to the storyline for this episode, which is Utica is double-faced.
And she's so awesome. You know, like, it hurt me to see her go home. But for me, it feels really good to lip sync, and like, I had a lot of fun with Tina up there. What do you guys think?
She seems to go from crying to being excited. And this is the first thing that I bet everybody noticed, because it felt strange. It felt like there was so much in the middle that was completely lost. But it's not just that, because immediately while she's talking, we are hit by a suspenseful music, shady noises, and everybody is bitch-facing. And that is still not enough, because at the same time, we have 2 different confessionals from 2 different queens telling us that Utica is full of shit.
Utica is so confusing. She'll full lip sync for her life and come back, like, sobbing. But then when you ask her about it, she's like, it was such an honor to lip sync. I love lip syncing so much.
I'm not gonna sit here and tell you, oh girl, you slayed the lip sync when I don't think you did. I thought Tina slayed that fucking lip sync.
2 minutes in, and this is our introduction. We are being primed to the storyline for the whole episode. After this, we have a real mini challenge, and I loved this mini challenge, even though there was a little bit of shilling for Anastasia Beverly Hills Cosmetic, but they have been sponsoring this show for the past 6 seasons, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not really a problem, because the mini challenge was incredibly stupid. I had a ton of fun watching it. I thought it was really nice. It was a nice touch, and most of all, the winner actually get to decide something. This, I think, is a first in this whole season that's been going on for 3 months. 3 months. What do they decide? They will decide the order for the Maxi Challenge. The Maxi Challenge is a roast. We'll have a special guest star, Nina West, Valentina, and Heidi and Closet. Of course, nobody spends any time explaining to the audience what a roast is, because it will destroy the narrative for this episode. Because a lot of people tuned in without any idea of what a roast actually is. I know that for us older people sounds like it's impossible not to know what it is, but I can grant you there are people who don't know what it is, and the production was really smart in always trying to not really define what's supposed to go on in a roast. After this, we have this moment in the workroom. You remember before that I told you, yes, the editors worked their magic, the producers directed the magic, but also Utica shot herself in the foot. And this is the moment in which I think she took the first shot, because Olivia is asking her, she's telling her about the roast, that she's a nice girl, that it's going to be difficult, and Utica responds, well, I'm sure you are going to do well. And after that, we are hit by a confessional in which Utica is saying, well, I think Olivia might be the one in trouble in this challenge because she is so nice.
I think I'm gonna end up doing well. I think I'm gonna do well. It's not my thing, but who's to say what's my thing? Get it?
I'm very confident that you're gonna do very well in this challenge.
I think I'm the most worried about Olivia in this challenge. She is so delightful, but you need to be savage in a roast.
It's nothing special. It's not, you remember that confessional, that legendary confessional from season 2 when Raven came from Untucked saying, no, I would never say that you were shit.
All of you guys think that I'm like shit, that I'm like nothing.
I would never say that. Her interview was shit. Her look was shit. Her book cover was shit. Her trying to launch and sell her book to the judges was shit. She's shit. I would never say that.
It's not one of this moment, but it's still not a good look, because it's starting to prime the audience even more to this narrative that Utica might be double-faced, and it's a narrative that the viewers are going to embrace it, because we had the same narrative 3 episodes ago.
Olivia could be in trouble.
That's odd. When no cameras were around, and she said that I did great. We chatted a little after, and it sounded like certain things that weren't said earlier. That's all. You just being on camera a type of way, and then off camera a type of way.
There's like a shady little moment within her that she has started to let out when either the cameras disappear for a second or when it doesn't count. We were having dinner, and Utica decided to open up her binder and list out ideas she had but didn't use for the reading challenge. So she's literally like sitting there like insulting people.
This storyline has been built up for the past 3 episodes. That's one of the reasons why it worked so well. And also Utica really shot herself in the foot, because even though I can give her the benefit of the doubt and think, okay, maybe you are one of those people who cannot, for the love of God, give bad news to anyone. In this confessional, she fucked it up. Because right now, people that are looking are thinking, yes, you are double-faced, and I'm not giving you any more benefit of the doubt, because I had an example 3 episodes ago, and now I see this. So this was a huge error from Utica. This will serve as an example for all the future queens that will come competing in this competition. Trust and believe what's happening to her will not happen again, because the next competitor will be smarter than that. So after this, something strange happens during the rehearsal, because Kandy Muse is roasting Valentina, calling her the C word. And when she does, both Michelle and Lani are laughing about it. And Kandy goes and says, wait a moment, is that too harsh? And the answer from Michelle is, no, it's not too harsh.
Well, I think it's pretty funny that we're doing a roast for the Miss Congeniality, seeing that we have the Miss Congeniality with us here tonight.
Right.
Is that too harsh?
It's not too harsh.
Calling someone the C word in a roast is fair game, which it is. That's the point of a roast. But you also have to be funny about it. If you're not funny about it, it's not personal, you just didn't do the challenge right. Then we have Gottmik, and one of Gottmik's joke is calling Michelle a whore. And when she does, everybody is laughing.
We don't all have our brand given to us the day we were born. Michelle popped out and the doctor smacked her ass to see if she was alive, and the word whore just popped right out.
That's cute. You got some good stuff.
We are talking about vulgarity directed to someone. And everybody is laughing. Everything is fine. Then it's the turn of Olivia. And when she's practicing her jokes, the feedback is you need to go for hard-hitting jokes.
I think if you could surprise the crap out of us with some hard-hitting jokes, it would be really fab.
She was being too nice about it. This is a roast, you have to really go down. Then we have Rosé, which was praised for hard punches.
Your punches are so punchy and good and hard.
Then we have Symone, which was asked to take it as far as she can.
Take it as far as you can. Always better to go right for the jugular.
Go right to it.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was like long. You just want to hit him.
Yeah.
Please keep this in mind, because this is the last moment in which we are still anchored in reality. After this, everything will take a tangent of the narrative. And then we have Utica. And this is where Utica shot herself in the foot a second time. She was basically roasting Michelle and Lani during rehearsal. And that's debatable if you like it or not. Personally, I thought it was hilarious. When Michelle came out and say, oh yes, Utica, I saw The Lion King, I have kids. And Utica came back and said, oh sure, you look like it. That's a roast. That's the burn that you get at a roast. When she was making the whale joke, all of them were laughing. When she made the whale joke to Lani, she stopped laughing. She called Lani, I think, a manatee. Now, this is a roast. Everybody is supposed to be on board. That's the point of it. What did Utica wrong? Well, she asked Lani if she was triggered by her words. Even if you are rehearsing, you just don't do that. Especially not on RuPaul's Drag Race, because they will fuck you in the ass for that. And of course the edit is telling us that she's not doing a good job. Michelle doesn't tell her things like, listen, your jokes are not well constructed. Your jokes are lacking a punchline. There is not enough setup, which are good feedback if you're trying to coach someone that has to roast someone else. Instead of feedback, she says, you are being mean. Being mean in a roast, that's exactly the point. You have to be as mean as you possibly can. That's the assignment. So the moment she started saying to Utica, you are being mean, mean doesn't work in a roast, then yeah, that's the moment when I started smelling shit. Shit was about to go down, without a doubt. And that's exactly what happened.
You like that, Lani? Can you speak whale too?
Very mean. Very, very mean.
It's harsh.
Just mean doesn't work. You know what I mean?
Seeing that we have the Miss Congeniality with us here tonight.
It's not too harsh.
The word whore just popped right out.
That's cute.
You like that, Lani? Can you speak whale too?
Very mean. Very, very mean.
But before we actually go to the roast and discuss the performance of everyone, I want you to focus on one thing. Utica is the only queen that didn't get a mirror moment to open up about herself. Everybody had one during the season. Utica is the only one who didn't get it. You can draw your own conclusion as to why it happened. I'm just here to tell you she didn't have one. And we review every episode to the frame. I can assure you, she didn't have one. Instead, what we got is spiky hair Rosé, which you should be comfortable with at this point because she's been having temporal incursion in every episode except 2 or 3.
There are stronger roasters in here than others. I know that The strong points are gonna be Kandy, Gottmik, and myself.
And I'm like, what the fuck? Of course you know that. You come from the future. And then she carries on the storyline with Utica again.
She's been a little off lately, so I'm not sure what to expect, and she's still like grinning from ear to ear, can't wait to roast the dolls. I'm hoping that she doesn't turn it up too hot.
Why are we seeing this confessional? It's not because we have to know Rosé's opinion, because it's an opinion that comes when this thing was long filmed already. No, the point is priming you, the audience, with the same subliminal message. Something is going to happen. She is a mean girl. She is a double-faced girl. And I hope that it doesn't turn up too hot. And what happens? It does turn up too hot. So you see how the edit was carefully stitched together episode after episode, and especially in this episode, in every instance we have a little bit of a reminder, because that will exacerbate our reaction when shit actually starts going down. The moment shit goes downhill, we are primed and ready to have as strong as possible of an emotional reaction that we can. And we saw that happening on social media exactly like this. At this point, I'm asking you, do you really think that nobody at World of Wonder suspected that this would happen to Utica? I think that was exactly the point. I think that's exactly what they wanted, because it's still publicity. It's still blah blah blah. It's still people tweeting. It's still engagement for the show. Let's move on to the roast. First thing, Kandy Muse was one of 3 queens who had an incursion through a confessional from Valentina praising her performance. Please keep this in mind, because only the winner and the bottom queens had the commentary for their performance told through confessionals, and Kandy is one of them. Personally, I didn't like Kandy Muse roasts. I did notice a little bit of stitching to make her performance feel like her timing was more on time, if you know what I mean. But to me personally, her delivery was a little bit too stiff. Most of the jokes didn't land for me. They were not funny. They were actually weak, not very well constructed, and without the edit, I'm pretty sure that the timing was a little bit off. It felt more like a stand-up routine and not a roast. If this was a stand-up routine, she would have been actually good. But this is a roast, so I am expecting you to go in. Let's not forget the roast of RuPaul from season 5. Now, something positive with Kandy's performance. She had one joke that I really enjoyed.
I don't know what's scarier, waiting for my test results at the clinic or waiting for a critique from the judges. I know at least one of them will come out positive.
The joke was actually pretty great, and on top of that, I think this is the best she ever looked in the entire season. Some final words about her performance. Even though I didn't particularly like it, I think that she was not necessarily bad. She missed a little bit the mark on the assignment, because this was a roast, not a stand-up comedy. So I was expecting much more. All in all, for me, she was safe, maybe even high. Next one, Symone. Now, Symone is the second queen who actually received confessionals. In her case, since she is going to be in the bottom, we have 2 negative confessionals. One from Heidi and Closet and one from Nina West. Both of them telling us that she is not doing good. Because you have to understand, as an audience, if we don't have this kind of things telling us that it's bad, we are not able to know it by ourselves. So it reinforces the narrative again, which for me it was completely unnecessary, because by this moment we know Symone's shtick. She has been doing it since the beginning of the season. It works, it's a good shtick, but if I see it over and over and over again, by episode 12 I know what it is, and if you don't execute it perfectly, then it's not going to work anymore. It's going to sound one note. There is a joke that I didn't even understand. In general, the whole routine for me was really bad. bad. The jokes were poorly constructed. I don't know if this is because of the edit or because she did really do a bad job in constructing them. The delivery and timing was absolutely terrible, but then again, it might have been a little bit of the edit. But at the end of the day, for what I saw, there was no burn. There was no build-up, no actual punchline. It was not a good routine. For me, she was one of the worst. On top of that, her outfit is broken. Look at the right glove. There is a tear in there. Now, do you remember a queen called Lalaurie? I know it was 3 months ago, but she was red to filth because she had a tear in her clothes.
But what I noticed is that there's a rip on your side, and it's pretty big. And I know the show must go on, but you got to do what you can do to make sure I don't see it.
When we go to the Cryptique, you won't hear anything about it. All in all, a very bad night for Symone. But she did look beautiful, I will give her that. Every time she's on that damn runway, she looks like $1 million. That's something that you cannot take away. That's as simple as that. Moving on to Utica, the moment everybody was actually waiting for. Utica is the last queen to have her story told through confessionals, and she actually received 4. 2 from Kandy Muse, 1 from Heidi and Closet, and 1 from Gottmik, all telling us that she's doing terrible. And on top of that, all the edit is absolutely terrible, except for her first joke. There is complete silence in the room. So you know it's silence that must come from the edit, at least at some point. It cannot be complete silence for 5 minutes straight. On top of that, Utica is the one that we heard roast the most, because she had actually 9 roasts, where Symone had 8, and Kandy had 8 as well. From now on, we're only going to see less and less. Now, there are a lot of opinions about Utica's performance. Personally, this is a roast, and to me, she did exactly what you are supposed to be doing in a roast. You have to go down hard. The problem with Utica is that it wasn't very funny. The punchline didn't hit that hard because most of the time there was no actual setup to the jokes. Or maybe there was and it was cut away. We might never know, because this is something that's true for all of the queens that we actually saw on screen. If I have to judge from what I'm seeing, well, some jokes didn't really land for me. Some were absolutely brutal. It might be because I have a fucked up sense of humor, or I'm used to roasts, so I know the mindset. The best burns that she had was when she read at the same time Valentina and Lonnie Love.
Valentina, you are such a beautiful sister.
Thank you.
But you have this diva attitude that's really hard to swallow.
I do.
It's just as hard to swallow as Lonnie Love's comedy career.
The second one was when she read RuPaul. That is the most brutal roast that I've ever seen on this show, and it was absolutely genius, because most of you don't know that RuPaul admitted that once she has done her moment on the runway, she put on her pajama pants and she sits down behind the judges' desks. So Utica is like, well, if you're laughing so much, queen of fashion, stand up, show me the fashion. And it was brutal. It was brutal. I think it was the best line of the whole show.
Once we're behind the counter, I put my pajamas on and I'm in the dress, and you don't see anything from here up, right?
RuPaul, you are such a fashion icon. If you could stand up for us, please.
I don't understand how her tuck didn't pop off, because she had balls of steel for going that hard. The only harder thing that she could have done was reading RuPaul on the fracking, or on the fact that she was completely silent when the Black Lives Matter movement rose up. What I didn't appreciate was when Lonnie, I don't know if she pretended to take it personal because she was just working for the check, or if she really did take it personally, because she clapped back at Utica and said, "You are the one bombing."
You're the one bombing!
And you have to understand, clapping back at a roast, that's actually a good thing. That I like that she clapped back. The problem is that after that, we hear that something like I am living because she was bombing. And that came off as mean, as if you're not a comedian. You're not used to do this. You are fucking it up and I'm telling you. So for me, that was the only moment in which I felt uncomfortable.
You're the one bombing!
No!
It was pushing a little bit too much on the narrative, which, as you know by this point, I noticed since the very beginning of the episode. Now, and this is all that I have to say for Utica. To me, she was middle of the pack. I wouldn't go as far to say that she deserved to be on the bottom. Worst case scenario, she could have been low. But she actually had two very, very good jokes for a roast. So I would say middle of the pack. A good middle of the pack. An honest middle of the pack. Now, we move on to Gottmik. Gottmik, to me, was the real revelation in this roast. All of her jokes were well constructed, the delivery was good, she had some great burns, not as much as asking RuPaul to stand up, but she had some great burns. Overall, it was good. Could have been great. She was like literally this close to be absolutely great to me. The problem is that we only had 5 roasts from Gottmik. Either she had very good ones that were cut out because she was not supposed to win this challenge, or she had very bad ones that were cut out so that she wouldn't look too bad. You'll have to make your own opinion about that. In general, she was really, really good. She looked beautiful, her makeup was on point as usual. You can never clock Gottmik on the makeup. She looks incredible every time. The dress was a little simple, but still looked great on her. So for me, she was my first candidate to actually win by this point. Our next queen is Olivia. Now, Olivia didn't receive any confessional to tell us that she was bombing. Now keep that in mind. She only had 5 roasts, again, and her whole thing, to me, was absolutely terrible. She was possibly the worst of the entire bunch. The delivery was atrocious. The nice character, the shtick that she has, when she put on a voice and acted all cutesy, for me, it didn't work. It would have worked if she pushed the character a little bit too far. Be more sweet, be more innocent looking, be more of that. And when you go to the roast, be absolutely brutal. Create a huge contrast between the way you appear and the things that come out of your mouth. And then it'll work. Unfortunately, it didn't work. I mean, all of her jokes were poorly constructed, they were very weak, there was almost no punchline. It felt like a family-friendly comedy channel. And that's not a roast. If you want to do that kind of comedy, it's perfectly fine. But this is a roast. That is the challenge. And to me, almost nothing worked. She had one good joke.
Mama Ru is so old, she signed the Declaration of Independence as parent/guardian.
That was written very well, the punchline was incredible, but that was the only one joke. Everything else was absolutely terrible. So based on that, for me, she was thoroughly deserving of the bottom. And that dress, it's possibly the worst on the runway tonight. It's not a bad dress, it fits well, but compared to what everybody else was wearing, it's a huge no. Rosé had actually 7 roasts, okay? Something curious happened with Rosé because she starts her routine by saying, I want to thank, and then it's cut, and we hear her say Olivia. That is a very sharp cut in the very beginning. I think all of you noticed it. You cannot possibly miss it. So we will never know what she actually said.
A massive round of applause for Miss Olivia, for Miss Olivia, for Miss Olivia. And before I get started, I do want us all to give one more massive round of applause for Miss Olivia Lux.
For me, she was the best without a doubt. All of her jokes were very well constructed. The delivery was on point. We almost never catch her looking at read her cards, which means that she actually prepared, which is incredible to me. The timing was great and the jokes were absolutely brutal, offensive, hilarious, and everything that I would expect from a roast. So for me, she is the winner of this challenge, and that dress is the best on the runway. It's stunning, it's very well constructed, it's complex, yet it has this feeling of simplicity. She looks absolutely fantastic, Rosé, tonight. We are going to jump directly to the Cryptiques. So, we have Kandy Muse. Now, you know, the Cryptiques is that moment in which we try to find sanity again, because this season, in order to go with the edit and what I think is an elimination order that was probably decided since the very beginning of the season, they make completely no sense. They are inconsistent between seasons, they are inconsistent in the same season, they are inconsistent in the same episodes. So let's read them, have fun about it, they have a good laugh and not take it too much at heart, because otherwise we're going to get completely crazy. Now, keywords for a roast: be as offensive as you can in the funniest way possible. The jokes need a good setup and a good punchline. That's the way you construct the joke. And everything has to be held together by good timing and good delivery. This is the kind of feedback that I am expecting. Is that what we got during the Cryptiques? Absolutely not. For Kandy, they said that she set the bar high. Okay. Everyone was compared to her after her performance. That's more of a train of thought than a critique. She was so funny. Okay, she was in the zone. You laughed from the beginning to the end. The judges were howling. She had energy, confidence, knocked it out of the park, gave us old school vibe. She was fantastic. No other queen stopped her. Maybe she doesn't like that. And they were so proud they could spit. I think this was Michelle. Kandy is the winner of this week's challenge. But let's not forget the assignment. It was not stand-up comedy, it was a roast. And from that point of view, Kandy completely missed the mark for me. Next up, we have Symone. Now, the Cryptiques for Symone was that she looked gorgeous, even though her dress is broken. Remember, Lala Ree. It was like 8 episodes ago. She was told, at this point in the competition, we have to consider everything. Not a word about a broken dress for Symone. But Symone is our hero, so she was told that she looks gorgeous, and it ended up there. Now, the Cryptiques for her performance was that she had a bad setup and punch. The setup was too long and the punchline was just cute. She overthink everything, she fell on her face, she was not selling joke, she was not very much in character, and it wasn't her night. Now, please compare the two kind of Cryptiques, because Symone actually got critiqued about her performance. They talked about the setup, they talked about the punchline, they went in details saying that the setup was too long, the punchline was simply cute, you have to be harsh in a roast. She actually received critiques. Why, you ask? Well, because she probably has to be in the bottom. While nothing was said about the winner and other queens, Symone was probably the only one who was actually critiqued on her performance. Moving on to the next one, we have Utica. And Utica they absolutely destroyed. Not only they didn't deliver actual critique on her performance, they doubled down on the storyline. They told her jokes were no jokes but just observation. And if you go back to her performance, you realize that she didn't say you are X, you are Y. She always made a comparison. Granted, maybe it was a bad one, maybe it was not constructed properly, but they were not observation. They were badly constructed jokes. Then she told her that she was harsh, that her way to go is to get mean, and she didn't have to try to be mean. And I'm like, what the fuck are you telling me? This is a roast. Not only you have to be mean, you have to be as mean as you possibly can while trying to be as funny as you possibly can. This is a roast. This is not stand-up. But you see that her failed performance is transformed in the critique as a judgment of her intentions. They told her her way to go is to become mean. Now, after everything that we've seen during this episode, the setup for her edit that started 3 episodes ago, the way she shot herself in the foot during filming, and you can understand why the reaction toward Utica was so bad on social media. Because the storyline, her villain storyline, was so well constructed and pushed every step of the way. If you have taken a little bit of a dive on social media, then you know what happened by this point. The relentless attacks, people saying that she was phobic this, phobic that, people who maybe genuinely didn't know what a roast is, or people that willingly ignored the meaning of the roast to go on with a narrative and saying, oh, you insulted people, you disrespected people. And here again, I'm telling you, words without context mean nothing. Context is essential. You cannot judge anything without taking into consideration the context, and those things were said in the context of a roast. So to me, it boggles my mind how people who know what a roast is can genuinely believe that she was being disrespectful. It really boggles my mind. But Utica decided to apologize. Now, do I agree with that apology? In a way, yes. In a way, no. And I want to explain you why. Personally, I would have never apologized, because if I was there, I would tell you, listen, I was doing the challenge. That was the challenge. That's what I signed up for. It's a competition. I want to win, so I'm going to give it my best. I failed, so unfortunately, failed jokes in a roast, unjust insults, but it's not personal by definition. So I wouldn't have apologized at all. I mean, why should you apologize for doing the assignment at the best of your abilities? If anyone would have to apologize, for me, it would be VH1 and World of Wonder, because they pushed this narrative. They got a ton of viewers into this episode without any sort of disclaimer. And you have to understand that there are people in the mass of people who reacted to this. I am sure that there is a percentage there who genuinely didn't expect this and got triggered without any sort of advice that might happen. But Utica, I don't know, maybe being the way she is just, you know what, this is the way I am, I cannot go with this, I will just apologize. But look at the first comment that popped out, and immediately after that, the response from Nina West was like, it's a roast. And we were all in on it. We were fully aware that it was a roast. Give yourself a little grace, and that's the point. That's exactly the point. It's just surreal to me. And unfortunately, World of Wonder, to me, at the best of my knowledge, didn't say absolutely anything in favor of Utica. Now, maybe there is something there and I miss it. If it happens and I find it, I will correct myself in the episode, but as far as I know, there was nothing. When Kandy Muse told Tamisha that shit was going to get physical, she was defended by World of Wonder on social media. When Utica failed at doing a challenge, nobody was there. Nobody. Who was there? Other drag queens. People who actually care. What do we have about Gottmik? Her cryptiques were that she listened and it paid off. It was really strong. Her jokes were my favorite. She has a future in stand-up. She delivered. She has the goods. She felt easy to watch. Her jokes were on fire. She was hitting. She knew what she wanted to do. This is my favorite one. She knew what she wanted to do. And then we finally have a proper feedback saying that the delivery was great. This is what was said about Gottmik. About the fact that she had a tear in her dress, no, nothing. Moving on, we have Olivia. Now, Olivia was told that her routine didn't fully work. It felt like an apology, the way she walked on stage. She was coming out too nice. She should have snapped out and roast. It could have been great. She relied on being cute without delivering. Then they complimented her on her joke for RuPaul. I thought it was great as well. And then she was likable, lovable, sweet, but one note. So, as you see, then again, we don't have real critiques. We don't have real critiques with her. There is a little bit of a weak thing with what was going on with the persona that she presented, but nobody is really talking in detail. But of course, Cryptiques are there to push narratives, so we didn't get any of this. And now, my favorite one, Rosé. To Rosé, they told her that she owned it. It was executed beautifully, and this is a real critique. She didn't have cards. She didn't have props to read from. This is another real critique. I'm going to have a stroke. She had smooth transitions. I didn't know about that because everything was edited. And then she is the total package. She knows what she was doing on stage. She has a commanding presence. She's meant to be on stage. She nailed it, but she was funnier in rehearsal. So we have this huge non-cryptiques that are basically praising Rosé, and then they go to, oh, but you were funnier in the rehearsal. And then you have Lonnie coming out and saying, listen, if you're doing a performance twice, then it has to be something different. You cannot do the same exact thing. Everybody else did the same exact thing, except Kandy Muse, who dropped the C-word joke toward Valentina, and Utica changing the Pumbaa and Symone to Ross and Symone, actually. These are the only changes. Everybody else had the same exact jokes. But they told Rosé, well, they had to find something. Well, you were much funnier in rehearsal. Who gives a shit? They had to find something. Who gives a shit? That's a rehearsal. In rehearsal, you're supposed to rehearse what you're going to do afterwards. It's not a pre-show. It's not show number one. It's rehearsal. I don't give a shit if she was better in rehearsal. Her show was clearly the best, but they had to find something to say about Rosé because she was not meant to win. So this season is crazy. The judging this season is completely crazy. After that, Kandy Muse wins the challenge. I guess good for her that she finally has a win. I bet it feels good. And Symone and Utica are in the bottom. Gosh, we didn't see Symone be in the bottom when we did the last prediction, did we? So let's go to the lip sync. I like the song for this lip sync. I like the performance of both of them. At this point, it goes down to taste. I think that they both did a good job. The only thing that I have to say about this lip sync is that some fuckery was going on because seemingly Symone is wearing a scarf. Then the scarf disappears, then it reappears again, and then it disappears again. So, based on the fact that this is not the first time that we see something like this happening during a lip sync, and the fact that I am convinced that they do not refilm it, based solely on the fact that some garments get actually ripped off and it would be impossible to refilm a lip sync, I knew where to look. And the part that was re-edited was a part of the chorus. By this point, I am basically sure that they lip-sync the whole song. As you know, in pop music, you have the chorus coming 2 or 3 times, and the part in which the scarf magically reappeared and disappeared was part of the chorus. So I don't know if she was tired during the last part of the lip-sync, or she didn't do that good, or maybe they just didn't have the camera angle, but that part of the chorus was taken from a former moment of the same lip sync. And that was all for this episode. Of course, I've been late in putting it out, like weeks too late. The season is already over, but we are going to finish this series of review one way or the other. But as you know, this channel is something that comes out from our free time. So if other more important thing comes out, we have to postpone the work for the channel. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to help in supporting the channel, we have a Patreon. As usual, a special thanks for our existing patrons, those super queens up there that have been helping us delivering content until now. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon with a special surprise.